you can draw this in Procreate. This landscape painting might look a little bit challenging, but I promise you I will be taking you through all the steps in this Procreate tutorial. This video might be a bit longer, but that's because I don't want to speed up anything. I don't want to skip any steps. I simply want to show you everything so that by the end of the tutorial you will have a result that you will be proud of. Oh, and don't worry if you need to pause the video at any moment. Just take your time. There's really no need to rush. The pause and rewind buttons are there for a reason. Now, once you have finished this tutorial, it would be great if you would share your work because I always enjoy seeing your results. What you need for this tutorial is a canvas that is 3000 by 2000 pixels. We'll be using both brushes that are already in the Procreate app and some brushes from my Procreate treasure chest, which you can get for free, totally free at freefromflow.com. So if you are ready, let's get started. We will start by creating the mountains that are all the way in the background. And I like to use the script brush for that. You can find it under calligraphy. And for the color, we'll use this third color in the first row. The opacity of the brush should be at 100%, and I have the size at 25. And then we'll start pretty high here. We'll start about here and make a wiggly, wobbly line to the right. And then when we are at the center, we'll go up again. Also a wobbly line to about here. And then you can drag in the color underneath. Then we'll create another layer on top. So go to the layer menu and then tap the plus. And then for our color, let's grab this one. First color in the first row. And then grab the selection tool. That's the S shape ribbon. And we'll set it to rectangle and turn on color fill. And now we are going to start here in the lower left corner and then drag up and to the right, and we'll go to about like the halfway point of our canvas. So that's about here. And then let go and it'll automatically fill. Then you can tap the magic, no, not the magic wand, the S shape ribbon again to get out of here. And now we are going to create our grass plane on top of this. This will actually be the water. And now we are going to add the grass so that a little river will start to appear. So we need to make a new layer on top of this one. We'll tap the plus. And for the color, we will grab this last one in the first row. And we'll still work with that script brush. And let's make our river start about here. And then we'll make a zigzaggy line. And we'll move to the lower right. But we'll keep making these zigzags. And then we'll start over here and we'll make more zigzaggy lines over here. And then we'll go all the way to the left like this. Then let's zoom in a little bit and let's go along this like horizon line. And it can be a little bit wobbly, that line, that's totally fine. And then over here as well. So we get two closed shapes. And then you can drag in a color to fill these areas. And then once you have this, of course, you can sculpt it a bit more. You can tap and hold the eraser to make it switch to the script brush. And let's see, we can carve out a little bit more here. So that we get a better river shape. So don't worry if you don't get the shape right away. It's digital art, so it's very forgiving. So just something like this. Just a zigzaggy shape with rounded curves on each side. I think something like this works fine. So now we have a very basic landscape. We have our mountain range in the background, we have our river, and we have our grass. So this is a good time to make a screenshot so you can copy these shapes. And now once you have that, let's continue and let's start working, refining everything. First, let's make a layer underneath our layers that we already have. So we'll tap the plus and then we'll tap and hold and drag this to the bottom. And this is where we'll make our sky. First, we'll drag in this first color in the first row. And now we are going to create a little gradient. Let's go to the airbrushing brushes and use the soft brush. And for the color, we'll grab this yellow, this second color in the first row. Now for this brush, I have the opacity set to 100% and the size is at 13. And let's go over this left area. That's where the sun is. That's where the sky is turning yellow. Very gently go over there until it looks like this. Then let's work on our mountain range. Here on layer 1, we'll tap that layer and turn on alpha lock. That way we won't be able to paint outside of the shape, and we can add a little bit of a gradient here as well. So we'll stick to the same brush. First, let's grab this color. That's the 7th color in the first row. And let's go over here, add some of that brighter blue. And on the right side, I want it to remain a bit darker. We'll just have this lighter color here, making these like circular motions. And then I'd also like to add a little bit of the yellow, that 2nd color in the first row. Let's lower the opacity of the brush a bit to, let's say 70%. And let's make the brush a tiny bit bigger. Let's go for 17. Then add a little bit of that yellow glow here. Then on the right side, I'd like to go even darker. Let's grab this color, 4th color in the first row. And let's gently go over here. Add a bit more shadow like this. And then here I'd like to go even lighter. We can grab this color, 8th color in the first row. And I will go over that lower area to add a little bit of like mist. And this area, it will actually be covered by trees, so it doesn't matter that it looks a bit weird here. Just focus on that top area. So let's create another hilly shape or mountain shape in front of this one. We'll tap the plus, then we'll go back to our calligraphy brushes and use the script brush. And for the color, let's grab this one, 9th color in the first row. And let's start about here. Make a shape going up like this, and then all the way to the right. And then make sure to loop around so you can close the shape and drag in the color. Now over here, I also want some more mist. So let's tap the layer and turn on alpha lock. Then we can go back to that soft brush and we can grab that light color again, that 8th color in the first row. And then let's go over this lower area. Let's actually make the brush a little bit smaller. Let's go for 11% and go over this lower area for a little bit of mist. This is where trees will be, so don't worry about that area. I think this looks good. Now we are going to add some bushy shapes, and these bushy shapes will turn into like bushes, but also trees. And let's do that on a layer that is on top of the grass. Otherwise, of course, we won't see any bushes on the grass. So we need to have our layer on top of the others. So tap the plus here. And then for our brush, we'll go to the treasure chest brush pack. If you don't already have it, be sure to go to freefromflow.com to get it. It's totally free. And we'll go to the soft scattery bush, which is a brush from my landscape brush pack. So if you enjoy this brush, be sure to check that out. Now for the color, we'll go for this one over here. That's the 6th color in the 2nd row, a nice dark green. Now the opacity should be at 100%, and I'll set the size to 30%. And now you're just going to roughly decide where these bushes will be. We'll start here, make rounded motions, and we'll move to the right. We'll add a bigger shape here. That'll be a tree, and here as well, we'll go higher. So this nicely creates random shapes. And we'll go all the way down to cover that hill. And here at the bottom, we'll go pretty much straight to the right. So this is like a silhouette for our shape. this is like a group of bushes and trees. And we'll do the same on this side. Let's start a little bit higher than like our horizon line. And then go from left to right. Make some bumps. Some nice random shapes. And then as we move to the right, we'll go a little bit lower. We'll stop about here. Those are some smaller bushes. And then just fill it in again. Go pretty much straight to the left with these rounded motions. For our next step, we are going to create some big pine trees behind these bushes. And to place them behind the bushes, we need the layer to be underneath this one. So first we'll tap this layer, then we'll tap the plus. And then for our brush, we'll go to the drawing brushes, Procreate standard drawing brushes, and we'll use the little pine tree. And then for the color, let's go for this one. First color in the second row. The opacity of this brush should be at 100%, and I'll set the size to 13%. I will start here. First make a line going downward. Just make a base for our tree. And then at the top, of course, it's very pointy, it's very thin. And then as you move downward, make bigger strokes. Make it wider. So we're pretty much making almost horizontal strokes, but try to go downward a little bit on the outsides. So they're like these diagonal lines as you go downward. So it's like this. Then next to it, we'll make another big one about here. First make a line and then go down like this. Reminds me a bit of the Bob Ross technique. I remember he also made this vertical line and then used some magic with his brush, and then he went like shh, and he had a tree. So it's a bit similar. We just need to channel our inner Bob Ross. Then another one right next to it, a little bit lower, and it'll be a little bit thinner. Just move downward with these diagonal strokes. And then, well, where shall we put another one? I think over here, I can make another one. Down and down we go. And now we also need some trees on this side. Let's start with one over here. First a vertical line, and then we'll go down like this with these diagonal strokes. And then one next to it. A little bit higher. Try to vary the sizes and the heights of these trees a bit. And then one even higher over here. It's almost reaching the top of our canvas. Then another one here. And one next to it that is a bit taller. I want to pretty much cover this light area. I feel like it's a bit distracting, so let's cover that with pine tree. They're just touching each other. Now let's add some color variety to these trees. Let's first grab this lighter color, second color in the second row. And let's add a little bit of that to the right sides. And we are going to blur these trees a little bit later. So don't worry too much about the details. I'm just adding a few dabs to the right side in a diagonal way, just to add a little bit of like texture. I'd also like to add a little bit of green. We'll add this color, third color in the second row. You might have noticed that our base color for our trees wasn't green, but a bluish color. Because things that are far away, like trees, they get influenced by the atmosphere, by the color, the bluish atmosphere. It'll make things far away look more bluish. So that blue is an appropriate color for these trees that are far away. Now this was very subtle. I'm not even sure if you can see this green on camera, but we added a few splotches of green. Now we'll add some warm tones, this fourth color in the second row. And we'll add that on the side where the light is. Let's make the brush a little bit bigger, maybe 23%. Add some of these blotches on the left side where the sun is hitting these trees. A little bit here. And also for these. Few splotches of that warm color. Maybe this one also gets hit by the light a little bit. I want to warm them a little bit more, and let's do that with an overlay layer. We can make a layer on top of this one by tapping the plus, and then we can set this new layer to clipping mask so that whatever we do here, it'll only apply to these trees. Then we can tap the N and scroll down to overlay. This is one of my favorite blending modes. And then let's grab the soft brush again. And I think we can use this color. Let's go over here. Yeah, that's really perfect. Let me check. The opacity is at 70% and the size at 8. And let's go over these trees with this color to warm them up even more. Well, not this one in the back. That's further away. It'll be more bluish. A little bit over here. And that really warms them up nicely. If you turn it off, you can see it. It's a nice warmth that's added. I also want to add a little bit of that mist. So let's first pinch these together and then tab this layer and set it to alpha lock, which is a bit similar to clipping mask, but now we're just working on one layer and we can choose a layer blending mode. And we don't need a layer blending mode. We do need our soft brush and a color for our mist. I think we can use this one. That's the 7th color in the first row. And let's go over the right sides and the lower sides just a little bit. Adding a bit of like this haze. Also over here and here. Yeah, I like that. Now we are going to blur these trees a bit. And we'll do that by first turning off alpha lock, otherwise the edges won't blur. So tap the layer, turn off alpha lock, then go to the magic wand and to Gaussian blur, and then slide to the right, really just slightly. Let's just go for a low 2%, and then tap the magic wand again. Now I want to add more trees behind these. So let's make a layer underneath these. Let's go and create a layer that is actually underneath our grass, so we won't be able to go over the grass. And also underneath our water, let's just make a layer on top of this. Let's tab the plus, and then let's go to our treasure chest again. And then where is it? There it is. Let's use the pine trees brush. And for the color, let's start with a light one. Let's start with this one. That's the 5th color in the 2nd row. The opacity is at 100% and the size at 8. And let's go behind here and add some trees. Just something like this. And as we move to the right, I want to go darker. I also want to add some darker trees here. So let's grab, I guess, this color, 6th color in the 2nd row. Let's make the brush a tiny bit smaller. Let's go for a small 7%. And let's place some of these darker trees here. And then as we move to the right, let's go a little bit more towards the bluish hues. Let's grab this one, 1st color in the 2nd row. And let's add some more trees here. And maybe we can also add a few hand-drawn trees here in the background. Let's go to our recent brushes and grab that little pine brush again. Maybe we need to make it a bit smaller again. Let's go for 14% and add a few of these simple trees here in the background that are a little bit longer, a little bit taller than the trees from the pine trees brush. Just a few. And then I'd also like to use a Procreate standard brush. You'll find it under organic, I believe. Yeah, there it is, the rainforest brush, which is also a great brush to add very simple trees. The opacity needs to be at 100%. And let's make the brush very small, maybe 2% or 3. What was it? It's at 3. And let's go and add some of that here. Then I want to blur this layer a bit. So we'll go to the magic wand and then to Gaussian blur. And we'll blur it slightly. Let's go for 3%. And then I want to add a tiny bit of mist on this layer. So we'll go to the layer menu, tap it, and turn on alpha lock. Then we'll go back to the soft brush. We can go all the way to the top to our recent brushes. And then grab the soft brush. Grab a light color. Let's grab this one, 7th color in the 1st row, and we'll go over here and add some of that mist. Just a little bit. Then I want to make another layer of trees on top of this. So we'll go to the layer menu and we'll tap the plus, and then we'll go back to the pine trees brush, and we'll grab the dark green, that 6th color in the 2nd row. Now let's make a few more right in front here. Let's make the brush a little bit smaller, 4%. Just something like this. Then let's first blur it again. Let's go to the magic wand, to Gaussian blur, slide to the right to, well, let's go for 2%. Then we'll turn on alpha lock on the layer again. So tap it, turn on alpha lock, then grab the soft brush, and then we'll grab that blue again, 7th color in the 1st row, and we'll add a bit of mist. Just like this. And then I want to make the brush smaller, maybe 2%, and then go over this lowest area and add even more bright blue there. Just with this horizontal stroke. I think that looks good. Now let's start working on our grassy plane. Let's go to that layer. Over here, let's tap it and turn on alpha lock. Now we are going to add a lot of grass texture here. And I'd like to use a brush from the Treasure Chest brush pack. It's the simple grass brush, just need to find it. There, the simple grass brush, and we are going to add a lot of different colors to this layer. Let's start with this one. That's the 7th color in the 2nd row. The opacity of the brush is at 100%. Let's set the size to perhaps 50%. And we are just going to add some texture to this layer by using these horizontal and sometimes slightly diagonal strokes. We'll just start with a layer of this color. Then we are going to vary it up with different colors. For instance, let's grab this one, this brownish color, 9th color in the 2nd row. Let's go along the undersides here a bit. Add some of this color here, nice warm color over here as well. Now you don't have to follow me exactly. Perhaps we can also use this color, 6th color in the 2nd row, that very dark greenish color. We can use that along these edges to give that a little bit more volume. You can see how immediately it looks like it's a little bit elevated. Then let's add some lighter colors. Let's start with this one, 4th color in the 2nd row, that brownish color. Let's go over here. And at a later stage, we can always go back to our grass and add even more to it, of course, but it's nice to already have a base for it. Let's also go even lighter with this color, 10th color in the 2nd row. Let's add a bit of that over here and here in the distance. And a great thing you can do with this brush is just tap and hold the smudge tool to make it switch to that simple grass brush. And then you can use it as a smudge tool and blend in this grass a bit, make some of the transitions a bit softer. Now the opacity of this brush is at 80%. I have the size at 51, but you can definitely play around with that. And just go over there, blend it a bit, follow the direction of the grass so that that's these horizontal strokes, slightly diagonal. And I think we have a nice starting point for our grass. Then let's start working on these bushes. Let's go to that layer that we have over here. By the way, these layers with our mountain shapes and with those trees, you can merge them if you want to save some layer space. I'll merge these trees, and I think I'll merge these as well. So we have these layers now. We'll go to the top layer with the bushes and we'll tap it and turn on alpha lock so we won't be able to go outside of the shapes. And then we'll use that soft scattery bush brush again. Then for our color, let's start with this one, 7th color in the 2nd row. Opacity is still at 100%, size at 30. And let's start here and make these rounded shapes, creating some bushes here. Try to leave some gaps with the darker color. I'm going to start with these bushes that are in the background. Here I'd like to make some other trees. This one will be green as well. And I want these to be more warm. So we'll start with these green bushes and trees. Add some here. And also with this brush, you can tap and hold the smudge tool to set it to the smudge tool, of course, to set the smudge tool to this brush. And then you can go over here, make those same rounded motions and blend some areas or push some darker areas up a bit more into the lighter areas. Now for this one, I also have the opacity at 80% and the size at 28. Let's go back to the brush and go lighter. We'll grab this color, 8th color in the 2nd row. And now let's add lighter touches. Just make sure to leave lighter gaps in between. And in between, you can grab that smudge tool and soften some parts. Then go back to the brush. Let's add some of this light color here as well. But this area is a bit in shadow, so I don't want to add too much or too many light colors there. Let's go back to the smudge tool, soften this as well. Maybe grab that brush again, add a little bit over here. Then back to the smudge tool, just go back and forth to add color and then smudge it. Like I said, I want these to look warmer, so I want a different color. Let's start with this color, 9th color in the 2nd row. And let's lay down a base for the trees that I want to create here. So let's make these rounded motions, add this base, and then we'll go lighter with this color, 10th color in the 2nd row. And we'll do the same. We'll add this color, leave some gaps. To make a shape here. Maybe a little bit over here, not too much. It's more in shadow. And in between, grab the smudge tool. Let's soften these shapes a bit. Back to the brush and go back and forth. I think something like this will do. Next, let's go to the other side. Let's first grab this color again, 7th color in the 2nd row. And let's add that to the tops a bit here. A little bit over here. And then back to the smudge tool to soften it. And let's also grab a little bit of blue. Let's grab this color. 1st color in the 2nd row. Let's add a touch of blue here. And I also want some warmer colors. Let's grab this one, 3rd color in the 3rd row. Choose that over here. Make some blobs, leave those dark gaps. Then go even lighter. Let's grab this color, the 10th color in the 2nd row, that warm color. A little bit over here. Then let's grab the smudge tool to soften it a bit. Then let's grab this color as well, 1st color in the 3rd row. And let's make the brush a little bit smaller, 20%. Add a little bit of that bright green. Just along some of these edges. And then again, you can grab the smudge tool, soften it a bit if it's needed. I think that looks good. And now to make it merge a bit more with the grass, we can go to the layer, turn off alpha lock, then go to the smudge tool and set it to that simple grass brush. And we can go along the underside and smudge that a bit, and it'll get that nice grassy texture. Well, that's a bit too much. So something like this, and over here as well. So that'll nicely make it blend. Now let's start adding some tree trunks. For our brush, let's go to the treasure chest brush pack again. And then I'd like to use the fine liner brush. And for the color, let's use this one. 5th color in the 3rd row. And let's not forget to make a new layer on top of our bush layer. So let's tap the plus. And then for this brush, the opacity is at 100%. The size is at 6. And let's start here. Let's make a line going up and then go thinner as you move towards the tops. Make thin little branches, some wiggly shapes, maybe one over here. And here as you go down, you can go a little bit thicker. That's where it's the thickest, and it'll get thinner as you move up. So let's make another one over here. Some nice wiggly lines. And over here, I'd also like to add some branches. Let's use a lighter color for that. Let's use this one, 8th color in the 2nd row. And let's just make a few subtle little branches. I also want to add branches over here. I want a dark green. Let's just tap and hold our screen to grab a color here and then add some branches here. Some nice wiggly shapes, perhaps also here. Now we can adjust these a little bit by going to the layer and tapping it and turning on alpha lock. And then let's grab a lighter color. Let's grab this one, 2nd color in the 3rd row. And let's use that to add light to these, to the left sides where the light is hitting. Also here. Adding a nice variety to these branches. And for these, I want to darken a few of them. Let's use the soft brush for that. Let's go to the recent brushes here at the top. Let's grab the soft brush. And then let's just grab that local dark color and then mute these a little bit. Let's push them back just a little bit to make it a bit more subtle. I think you are doing great. You already made it to the halfway point. Now, if you are enjoying this tutorial, then first of all, it would be great if you would leave a comment. And if you want to follow more Procreate tutorials, then you might want to check out my Patreon page. I have more than 150 Procreate drawing tutorials, and they range from beginner levels to more advanced levels, and they cover a wide variety of subjects. Or just check out the rest of the videos here on YouTube, of course. I launch a new video every single week. Now we are going to do something similar on the left side. So first we need to turn off alpha lock again, otherwise we can't draw here. So tap the layer, turn off alpha lock, then grab the fine liner again, and let's grab this color again, 5th color in the 3rd row, and let's make branches over here. Nice wiggly lines. I hope you can see it. It's quite dark. Just make some random wiggly lines and add some side branches as you move upward. You can also just grab that lighter color, 2nd color in the 3rd row. And even without alpha lock, we can go over here a bit. Add some light to these branches. Let's actually also use this color for this, the 10th color in the 1st row. I think that would be a nice color here. Slightly lighter than the other color. I think this looks nice. Now let's move on and add more bushes in front of these trees and bushes. So we'll go back to the layer menu and tap the plus. You can merge these layers if you're happy with them. And then we are going to make more bushes. Let's grab the soft scattery bush brush again. And for the color, let's grab this dark one. Fourth color in the third row. I want some bushes over here. Some small ones covering these tree trunks a bit. And maybe some bushes here. And on this side, I want some smaller ones here. Also in front of this tree. And also a few over here. It's a bit hard to see with this dark color. Let me just grab a lighter one. Let me grab this third color in the third row. So you can properly see these shapes. We'll just make them darker and add more color variety later. It's really all about the shapes at this point. So just some bushes and also some small trees. That's what these will be. Now let's go back to a darker color, fourth color in the third row. Let's also make a little bush here. So now we have a nice variety, nice spread of bushes. Now let's turn on elf lock on this layer, and we are just going to repeat steps that we did previously. So we'll add light to these bushes and use the smudge tool to smudge those colors. We'll start on this side. Let's grab this color, fifth color in the third row, and let's add some green to these, but leave some gaps, that dark color. And also on this one, some random blobs. Then for some lighter color, let's grab this one, 8th color in the second row for the lightest touches. And also over here. And then, like I said, grab the smudge tool, set to the soft scattery bush, and then soften it a bit. It also adds some more variety, some more texture. And then we'll move to the left side of our landscape. First, let's grab the brush again. Then let's grab that dark color first, 4th color in the third row, to darken these, because now you know the shapes. We can darken them. And then we are going to add the lighter colors. First, let's grab this one, 6th color in the third row, a nice brown. Let's add a bit of that over here. I want some nice color variety. Maybe also over here. For this little tree and this one. Now let's grab the smudge tool to soften it a bit. And then back to the brush, back to a different color. Let's grab this one, 3rd color in the third row. Add a bit on these bushes. Also on these. Some green touches here. And also on this one. Then let's grab the smudge tool again. Soften these. Also over here, just making these dabby motions. And then we'll go lighter. We'll grab the brush again and we'll grab this color, 1st color in the third row. add these nice little highlights. Right here at the tops. Perhaps a little bit over here, not too much. Then grab the smudge tool again, gently soften it. And then let's soften those undersides a bit again. Let's tap the layer, turn off alpha lock, and then we'll set the smudge tool to that simple grass brush again, just like we did before. And we'll go over that underside. So here, and make it blend with the grass. And also here. Then on this side. I think that works really nicely. Then we need some tree trunks here. Some branches for those bushes. So let's tap the plus for a new layer again. And then we'll grab the fine liner brush again. And for the color, let's use this one again. 10th color in the first row. And then we'll make some branches here. A few side branches. Make sure they are nice and thin. Something like this. Now let's turn on alpha lock so we can add some lighter colors here. Let's use this one, 2nd color in the 3rd row. Now let's add a tiny bit of light on some of these branches, a bit like this. When you're happy with all these bushes, you can actually merge them together, these top 3 layers. And now we can add some more touches to the grass. Let's first go to this layer, our grass layer. And for the brush, let's go back to the simple grass brush. And for the color, let's grab a bit of this. That's the 6th color in the 1st row. I want to add a bit more light to some of this grass. It's easier to decide where you want it right now that we have our bushes. Let's make the brush a little bit smaller, 40%. A little bit of this in the background. And of course, again, you can use the smudge tool set to that grass brush to soften it. And let's also do that for this edge a little bit. Let's turn off alpha lock. And let's see what happens if we smudge it a bit here. Let's make the brush very small, maybe 10%. Let's go along this edge. That nicely soften it a bit. Makes it less harsh. Let's also do this for these edges. And I also want to do that a bit for the undersides, but let's use the soft scattery bush in that case. Let's see what happens. That's way too big. Let's make it smaller, maybe 4%. Yeah, I think that's nice. We can soften that a little bit because we don't want that to look too crisp. That looks unnatural. Just a little bit smudgy. It gives that nice irregular texture. You don't have to go all the way to the left. We'll cover that with other plants, but here you can add some of that texture. A little bit over here. I also want to add the suggestion of some flowers to this grass, and I thought a nice brush to do that is one of the treasure chests. It's the Stipple 2.0, and it gives these tiny little stipples, but they look like flowers. The opacity is at 100%, the size very small at 1%, and you can go over here, for example, and add this texture, and it gives a little bit of a flower idea. Let's actually do this on a layer on top of the bushes, so we can also go over the bushes a little bit. So let's make a layer on top of this one. Let's tap the plus, and then let's go over here so we can cover some of these bushes a little bit as well. We can add some of this light color in the areas where we have that lighter grass. But I also want to add some blue, for instance. There's a little bit of this over here. Let's add some blue. Maybe we can add this color, 8 color in the first row. I think that looks really nice. Like there are some small blue flowers. So just a few stipples really add to the environment. We can go even bluer. We can grab this color, 7th color in the first row. Yeah, I think that works really nicely as well. Maybe a little bit over here. Here in the distance. I just feel like these might look a bit too intense. What we can do is, let's try and use the eraser with this brush. So we set it to the Stipple 2.0. Let's make it a bit smaller, 20%. Set the opacity to 100. And let's just go over here to remove some of these. Yeah, I think that's a lot better. For our next step, let's create some bushes in the foreground. I want to add a lot of plants and flowers there. Let's do that on a layer on top of this one. Let's tap the plus. And for the brush, I'd like to use, let's go to the recent brushes. I'd like to use the rainforest brush. And for the color, let's just start with the dark one. Let's grab this 4th color in the 3rd row. Let's check the size. That's actually pretty good. Let's make a shape like this. Make rounded motions. Now we're covering some of that grass. And we'll go to the right with these rounded motions. Make a little bit of a bigger bush here. And then we'll go up again here. And then just fill in this area. So this kind of nicely frames our landscape and our river. Now let's add more color variety here. Let's start adding some lighter colors like this 5th color in the 3rd row. We can stick with the same brush and add some of that over here. A little bit here as well, and here. Just like with the bush, the scattery bush brush, just leave some darker gaps. Now let's also add some warmer colors. This one, 6th color in the 3rd row for some more warm bushes. Let's also add a little bit over here. Then we need to move on to the lighter colors. Let's first grab this one. 3rd color in the 3rd row. A little bit over here. Yeah, we definitely need to go even lighter. But this adds a nice variety. Then let's grab this one. 1st color in the 3rd row. Maybe we can make the brush a little bit smaller to 1%. And go over this edge. Well, it's actually a bit too small. I am regretting it already. Let's go back to 2%. Big difference. Let's add some light here to this edge. Also here. And over here. Then some lighter warm touches with this color, fourth color in the second row. Right along the edge. Now let's also add some variety with another brush. I'd like to go to the snow gum brush. You can find it under the organic brushes over here, and it'll help us create a nice variety over here. The opacity should be at 100%. I'll set the size to 5%, and we can start with a green. Let's just grab this color, fifth color in the third row, and let's go over here. Add some random leafy shapes. I also want to add some blue. Let's maybe grab this one, third color in the first row. Add some bluish colors here. Maybe go a bit darker. Let's grab this blue, fourth color in the first row. Yeah, that's nice. Some nice blue, maybe a bit over here and over here. We can also use that Stipple 2.0 brush. So let's go all the way to the top to our recent brushes, grab that Stipple 2.0, and let's grab this blue, ninth color in the first row. And we can also add a few of those stipples. And you can vary the colors of the stipples. You can also grab a color like this one, 10th color in the second row, for some stipples over here, extra texture. And next I want to add some more plants, some like lavender type plants. Let's do that on a new layer. Let's tap the plus. And for the brush, we'll go back to the organic brushes. So let's scroll down to organic. And I want to use the twig brush, but I want to adjust it a little bit. So you can tap the brush. And I want to turn up the jitter of the brush. Let's go to 45%. Then let's go to the color dynamics and let's turn up hue here. So we get different colors in one stroke. And we'll also turn this up. So each new stroke will also have a slightly different color. And then let's tap done. So now we have our new twig brush. Now for the color, let's grab this one. That's the 7th color in the third row. The opacity of the brush should be at 100%. Let's set the size to maybe 5. Let's see. Yeah, 5% is nice. And now let's make these lines upward here for this lavender-like plant. And you can see that each stroke is slightly different. Just make these slightly curved lines upward to create a nice plant-like shape. Let's do the same over here. Pretty short, slightly curved strokes upward. And then let's add more color. Let's grab this color, 8th color in the third row. So we'll add some lighter touches here near the tops. Also over here. And some lighter ones here in front. And for the lightest touches, we can grab this color, 9th color in the third row, for some really light touches. Maybe a little bit over here. Now we can also add some blue ones. Let's grab this color, 9th color in this first row. We can add some other plants. And we can also use this brush for just some little like dabs, which are also like plants, a little texture with different colors. You can also grab a yellowish color like this one, 10th color in the second row. You can use that also for some like horizontal little dabs. You can also grab local colors with your finger. Perhaps a little bit over here for some nice impressionistic plant work here. Now that we have our plants in the foreground, let's work on our water. First, let's go to this layer, our water layer. Let's tap it and turn on alpha lock. So we won't be able to go outside of that shape. Then we'll go and grab our soft brush. Let's just go to our recent brushes. I think it should still be there. Yeah, there it is. Our soft brush. Then let's grab this color, 9th color in the first row. Let's add that here at the top. Let's make the brush a bit bigger. 12%. Add some of that blue. I also want a darker blue, this 4th color in the first row. Let's add that here. And I also want some yellow, this 2nd color in the first row. Let's add that over here. Make the brush a little bit smaller, 7%. So some light over there. I think that's good. Now we'll go to the smudge tool, and then we'll go to the Procreate brushes and go to elements and use the oceans brush. Let's set the opacity to 50% and we'll lower the size to 45. And I will make these horizontal motions, creating this water effect. Just go over the entire area until you get this nice water effect. Then for the reflections on the water, let's make a new layer on top of this one. Let's tap the plus, set that layer to clipping mask, then tap the N and set the layer blending mode to multiply. It'll make everything a bit darker. And for the brush, let's go and use our little pine brush again. Let's go back to the drawing brushes. Use the little pine. And let's just grab local colors from our trees. And we'll make these shapes in the reflections. And you don't have to be super tidy. Just make something abstract. Also have these bushes reflected. Let's just grab a green. Make some abstract shapes that will give the suggestion of a reflection in the water. Do the same over here. Let's grab a lighter color. Create something like this. And we are going to blur it later, so don't worry about it too much. Let's grab a green here. Maybe also a bit over here. I think something like this. I think we got a pretty nice reflection. Now we can go to the magic wand and then to motion blur. And then you can slide to the right and it'll blur it in a horizontal fashion. Let's go for 15%. Then tap the magic wand again and then again. And let's go to motion blur again and now slide downward to stretch it a little bit. Now let's tap the magic wand again. I'm at 19% by the way. Let's tap it. And now let's add some extra touches to the water. Let's tap the plus and then let's grab a light color. Let's grab this one, 8th color in the first row. And for the brush, I'd like to go to the fine liner brush again, which is part of the treasure chest. Where is it? There it is, the fine liner brush, and we'll go along the edges of the water a bit. Add a light little touch. To separate the land from the water a bit better. Here it's also pretty light. You can make some of these horizontal lines. Go along the edge, and here also make some horizontal lines. Well, it's not exactly horizontal. Let's just first, you know what, let's just first focus along on the edges here. Here as well, you can make some of these lines like this, slightly sticking out. Then on this side as well. I think that looks really nice. And now, like I said, to make those horizontal lines, what you can do to make sure that they are horizontal, you can go to the wrench, then to canvas, and then you can turn on your drawing guide, and then go to edit drawing guide and turn on assisted drawing, and tap done. And now all your lines will follow the grid. Now you can actually turn it off so you don't see it. So you can go to canvas and then turn that off. It'll still work. And now you can make some of these perfectly horizontal lines on your water surface. Now, if you feel like in some places these lines are a bit, well, like invisible, maybe they are a little bit too dark, then you can also go to the layer blending mode and set it to screen, for example. Then they will be lighter. And you can play around with it with the opacity if you want to make them more transparent. And in case you have a bit of like smudge around the edges, a bit too much smudge, then you can just go to that layer with the grass, and you can either use an eraser or you can use a layer mask, and then go along that edge with that soft scattery bush brush that we used. And then you can just go along the edge and still get that little texture. Let's make it smaller, 6%. Still get a little texture, but clean it up a little bit. So make sure that you don't have too much smudge there. Like over here, you can clean it up a little bit. But I think this looks pretty good. Now let's finally add a sky. Well, we already have a sky, but let's add clouds to our sky. Let's go all the way to the bottom to this layer and then tap the plus for a new layer. And then I'd like to use another brush from the treasure chest brush pack. And that's the Where It Is brush. Where is it? It's the Jittery Taper brush. And let's start out with this color. Third color in the first row. Let's set the size of the brush to 20%. The opacity is at 100. And let's make some cloud shapes. And let's make them a bit diagonal. They are moving in a diagonal way. It adds some, well, it adds a bit of dynamic to the scene. Add some interest to our sky. These clouds are pretty dark, a bit gloomy. Also over here. We can go even darker with this color. Fourth color in the first row. Add some of that over here. And Make this one a little bit darker. Then back to that lighter color, third color in the first row. To add some over here. And maybe some little wispy clouds here. Then let's smudge these a bit. Let's tap and hold the smudge tool. And the strength of this brush is at 80%. Let's set the size to 30. And now we can make these rounded motions and make some of these clouds a bit softer. You can blend it a bit here. Making rounded motions. Also over here. And we can drag some of these a bit. Using very little pressure, by the way. Maybe soften this a bit. Then let's add a bit of light to our clouds. Let's go back to the brush. And then let's add some yellow to them with the fifth color in the first row. And let's just turn on alpha lock on this layer so you won't be able to go outside of the shapes. It's a bit safer. And let's add a little yellow touch. And over here, there's some sunlight hitting the bottom parts of these clouds. And you can also add a little bit of this color. I added that in the color palette. In any case, I don't remember exactly why it's here, but let's just use it. Let's add a little bit of orange. A little bit over here, and you can smudge it again. Use the smudge tool to soften it a bit along the edge here. Maybe a bit over here. I also feel like maybe this mountain range is a bit too high up. Now we can easily adjust that by going to this layer. Let's turn off alpha lock. Then let's go to the move and transform tool and set it to warp. And then let's pull it down a little bit here in the center. Maybe a little bit over here as well. I feel like we could use a bit more sky. Just make sure that you don't get a weird edge over there or over here. Then let's go back. Let's tab the arrow. I feel like we can tidy that area up a bit more by going to this layer, turning off alpha lock, then go to the smudge tool and soften this a bit. Maybe also a little bit here. You can adjust the clouds a bit more. And that's it. I told you you could do it. You have created a wonderful landscape. Be sure to check out the hundreds of tutorials I have at Art with Flow, and then I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.